Hi, my name is Sil. First of all, thank you very much for all of the support and opinions on this video. Since it got so popular, I thought I would do another one, this time about the Undertale Genocide speedrun. If you've ever watched one of these before, or have at least tried yourself, you know how difficult it is to get a fast time. But why is that? What stops speedrunners from just going faster and faster? Well, there are several issues, but assuming we're in a vanilla game, then one of the main problems is the skill, or the lack of it, as the time gets lower and lower. The current world record for Undertale Genocide is held by TetrasBit at 1 hour, 2 minutes and 46 seconds. So, what exactly is going on here? Why can't we get a faster time? What stops players from just going faster and faster until the record becomes perfect? Well, thanks to the help from TetrasBit, I can finally answer it. So, let's begin. Almost every speedrun of any game is determined by two factors: how much skill the player has, and how much the player is impacted by luck during the run, or RNG. And RNG might just be the worst thing ever when running the game in a certain way. As a game is pushed more and more towards its limits, unless it uses some set RNG like in Super Mario Bros., it becomes exponentially more difficult to save time, because the player simply requires better luck rather than better skill. And if there are multiple spots in the run where RNG is a big factor in going fast, this makes grinding for world records a complete lottery at times. Undertale Genocide is no exception to this. Because RNG determines almost every single monster encounter, all of the step counts required to fight set monsters, heck, even fighting Sans can give the player bad RNG and lose time. It's effectively a gamble to go for Genocide world record, especially in this day and age when the world record has crossed another minute barrier fairly recently. And that's the short story. This then begs the question: what would a perfect Genocide speedrun actually be like? To find out, we have to unleash our inner love for anime and play in Japanese. Yep, no messing around here. This does mean we'd have to upgrade the versions, as Japanese didn't become available until version 102. This is why the leaderboards are split, as Japanese provides time save for simply existing. More about this later. The reason why TASs, or tool-assisted speedruns, use the Japanese version of Undertale or Deltarune is because there are fewer characters in each sentence. This might not seem like much, but if you compare this to this, it really starts to add up quickly. Remember that, because it will be important. Of course, we're still going to need good RNG, so let's remove bad luck entirely and figure out what a perfect run would look like. Well, as it turns out, someone actually did this already. Dude5 made a TAS of Undertale Genocide with hacked RNG, meaning the game was modified to give the best luck possible at any given moment. The final time clocks in at 55 minutes and 44 seconds, time starting as soon as the name is chosen and ending on selecting a choice in Kara's dialogue at the end. So let's take a deep dive into the speedrun and see what happens. But first, let's cover some technical details. In Undertale, when you encounter a monster, the game uses a formula to determine how many steps the player has to take in order to initiate a battle, and when that is met, it picks from a random pool of monster encounters associated with given rooms. To get the fastest time, we just need to find out the fastest rate to spawn monsters, right? Well, yes, but there's something else too. We need to have the most amount of monsters possible in some later encounters, as it takes some time to find them. So the less encounters we have, the better. In the ruins, there's not much to say about it. However, this is the earliest point in the run where a strat can be performed to save time. How? By doing a trick called tutorial ass skip. This was found by Lilac in 2023, and it saves an estimated 26 seconds in this part of the run. This is unfortunately impossible to do in version 102 onwards, because the new input system doesn't allow that. Thanks, Toby Fox. From then on, the fastest way to finish is to kill multiple Whimsons in a row before moving into the triple rock room, fighting Frogget and Whimsun together. After 20 kills, we reach our enemy limit, and can continue without having to fight Napsterbluke. In the puzzle rooms, the task does some fast menu buffering to avoid running into "but nobody came." This can be done in RTA runs, but it is currently not humanly feasible to do this and save time. But at least as a proof of concept, this is a really cool idea. In Snowdin, after killing Icecap, you can do this. This trick is completely bound by RNG, but it allows for the player to kill monsters while a cutscene is playing, which is not normally possible. Hey, Future Sil here. This doesn't require RNG anymore, because there's a new piece of tech that was discovered by Luna Resi, which does... I'll just let Mr. Link 2K explain.
This trick roughly saves 30 seconds in every single Undertale glitched category, so this is Undertale's biggest discovery since TAS back in 2023. There are 4 different places we use this glitch. First one will be in here, this room, second one in this room, third one in this room, and then final one in here. With that explanation out of the way, first thing we need to do is get onto the pixel right before the cutscene trigger while holding left, up, and right. So to do that, hold up and right into the wall, time your left press, and then just kind of wiggle onto the pixel right there. So now you should be onto the pixel while you're holding all these 3 arrow keys. Now comes the absolutely ridiculous part. What we need to do is release left and then press it again, half a frame later. So this is basically a 60 FPS frame perfect, and it's a very nonsensical one at that, but it's okay. There we go. Okay, so that's by far where all the difficulty comes from in this strat. But now that once we've done that, we're basically on the cutscene trigger. And all we need to do from this point is just frame perfectly open our cell phone. To do that, we just hit CZ on one frame and then enter on the next. And we could just mash it away, move on. Yay! What a fun skip.
Alright, I'm done. If a player manages to hit this in a run, it will save around 10 to 15 seconds, which doesn't really speak a whole lot considering how much more we're going to get later. The player continues through Snowdin until they reach this room before Snowdin Town. The best encounter to get in this area is Icecap, Snowdrake, and Jerry all at once. Because the kill count is nearly exhausted before this room, there is no time lost from killing Jerry if he's the final monster. I actually went ahead and timed the task versus the world record, and I was surprised to see that a perfect Snowdin would save just over 2 minutes over the course of the run. Sadly though, the chances of a perfect Snowdin is extremely slim, as you'd have to get lucky with the 1 in 30 cutscene glitch and getting the same monsters over and over. Unfortunately, as you would expect, the world record run doesn't get this, but as I said, this more comes down to RNG rather than player skill. Waterfall is by far the most feasible place to improve, with it being a 1 in 24 chance of getting a perfect segment. So there's not much to talk about here, though some fluctuation is expected due to the step count factor in monster encounters. There is a trick that can be performed at the start with the Undyne cutscene called Seagrass Skip. This was discovered by Ocean Bagel in 2020, and it saves 30 seconds. So much for unskippable cutscenes, eh? Hotland and Core are also too luck-based to be reasonably improved. The optimal encounter to progress the kill count is getting a triple encounter with Final Frogget, Whimsalot, and Astigmatism all at once. The world record gets from the lab to Metaton Neo in 11 minutes and 22 seconds, while a perfect run would do this in 9 minutes and 32 seconds. Yeah. There is no reason to believe that any time could be saved here without brute forcing it. So if you've ever played Undertale Genocide, it's very likely that once you run into several triples in a row, you will likely never see that kind of luck again. Before we continue, I just want to go over some of the best known splits. For those who are confused, the best known splits are the fastest segments ever performed by a human. These were not done by a TAS or whatever, they were done by real humans, or at least these are the fastest splits that have ever been performed both in practice and world record attempts. Surprise surprise, Tetrasbit holds most of the best known splits, having the fastest time on Toriel and Undyne onwards, with the other best splits belonging to Vintagix in the Ruins and Mr. Link 2K in Papyrus and Waterfall. And before you get your hats on thinking that the sum of best gives a sub 1 hour run, I have bad news for you. The best known splits in this category give 1 hour, 1 minute, and 29 seconds at the time of this recording. Not even close. To further visualize how ridiculous this actually is, we need to go over some history. After the game came out, Tuxwizzle got the first world record, 1:34.14. They would improve on this record throughout September, but in October, a runner named Esper would take the crown for themselves with a 1:16.48, beating Tuxwizzle's 1:18.04. After 4 days, Tuxwizzle would strike back again, getting a 1:13.41. Other players would soon enter the scene, with Mountbank and Alkling lowering their records into the lower 1:10 range. In November, a player named Captain Alpica became the first person to get a sub 1:10, a 1:09.47. He'd get another world record almost 2 weeks later, until in December, the speedrunner TGH would show up. He would gradually lower the record until he went full optimization mode. He broke 1:08, 1:07, 1:06, until finally, in 2017, he got one of the strongest records in the game at the time, a 1:05.32. This record would remain unbeaten for over 700 days. In 2019, it got beaten and stood at 1:05.09. Now let that sink in for a moment. It took a year to reach 1:05, and as you can probably tell by today's standards, beating the record was only going to get harder and harder, and also more infrequent. Come 2020, when Seagrass Skip was discovered, Samuel J.H. would use this to lower the record into the 1:04 range, a 1:04.43. This led to a back and forth battle in a race to 1:03. Every time someone held the record and it gotten stolen, they take it back for themselves. However, Mr. Link 2K was not down for the count. They'd lower the record down to 1:03.38 in August of 2022. By that point, there was nothing that anyone could do to contest him. Other speedrunners gave it some real valiant effort, but none of them could come close. But in 2024, another new strat was found, discovered by Indy the Vulcan. What? How does this work? Well, when you move in the cutscene, the silhouette is meant to be a decoy, but it actually has an effect on the real Frisk as well. By clipping into the trees during the cutscene using this method, you can effectively set up a teleport that isn't supposed to be possible, but because Undertale is a well-coded game, this works. Following this discovery, Tetrasbit would enter and snag the record for himself, a 1:03.33. Mr. Link 2K would soon retaliate to take his record back, but Tetrasbit would use all of this knowledge over several years of speedrunning from other runners to lower the record further. And that brings us to today. Currently, the record stands at 1 hour, 2 minutes, and 46 seconds. It's safe to say that this run is heavily optimized. But what if new discoveries are found, I can already hear you asking? Let me break this down as well. Seagrass Skip, Early Burnt Pan, Toriel Skip, and the Papyrus Warp Glitch are the only time saves that a human can get with raw skill in this category. Combined, they only save around 1.25 minutes. More of these strategies would have to be discovered all over again in the most luck-heavy category in the entire game. And even then, the best known splits wouldn't even give sub-hour. Every single strat found over the years hardly saves time in the long run. To recap, Toriel Skip saves around 26 seconds. The cutscene glitch in Snowdin saves around 15 seconds. Papyrus Warp Glitch saves around 1.3 seconds. Seagrass Skip saves 30 seconds. The wrong warp afterwards also saves 1.3 seconds. Early Burnt Pan saves 14 seconds. And add some more unlisted wrong warps into the mix, approximately 4 seconds over the course of the run. all of those combined save a total of about a minute and a half. Hey, Future Seal here again. This new strategy actually saves another 30 seconds. At least. We don't know exactly how much time it saves in Genocide yet, but wow, that's already huge. Alright, I'm done. Keep in mind that it took another small discovery and even more hefty optimization to even make 102 humanly feasible. The record only improved by 2.5 minutes over 3 years. As well as how lucky are these best known splits that result in 101? Once again, this category is heavily optimized, and unless some new major things are found in the future, any time saved from now is going to have a minimal effect. To even put a sub-hour run into speculation, all of these small strats would have to be found again. Sub 1 hour will probably never happen. Well, on version 1 that is, because there is one other version that was leaked by Steam during the 10th anniversary of Undertale, version 0.99. And this version is completely broken because of an abandoned quiche. It's not known why this mechanic was cut, but we can get a good idea from this. Let me introduce you to a recently discovered, but also ancient glitch, quiche guilt. Upon dropping the abandoned quiche, a timer starts that lasts about 92 seconds. If the player stays in the same room and they're not in a cutscene and the menu's not already open, this time will never change. After the timer has expired, a secondary timer counts up, lasting 80 frames, or 2.6 seconds. If no menu is open, and you are not in the same room as the one you dropped the quiche in, and you are not in a cutscene, once this timer expires, the quiche text box will appear. And if you can get that to line up with another text box appearing, or a cutscene trigger, you can have that text box still open, and you can do anything else with it, including skipping Sans. Talking of Sans, there is not much to talk about here either, except the times here are almost consistent. The world record finishes the fight in 8 minutes and 6 seconds, and the task does it in a staggering 7 minutes and 27 seconds.
When you fucking see it!
So where does this time save come from? Well, funnily enough, the time save comes from not only getting the fastest shadow attacks, and yes, there is an optimal pool of those, it also comes from playing on the Japanese version of the game, as I said earlier. I went ahead and timed both the English and Japanese versions of the ending cutscene, and the Japanese version on its own saves 25 seconds. And it's not just true for Sans either. It's true for every other scene with unskippable dialogue. It saves 2 seconds in the Toriel fight, 2 seconds in the Papyrus fight, 10 seconds on Undyne, 25 seconds on Sans, and 32 seconds on Kara. 1 minute and 11 seconds from dialogue alone just by playing on the Japanese version. When you take the current world record and subtract that amount, whoa, maybe playing on the Japanese version is a good approach to 101. But even with that time save, the best known splits still don't give a sub-hour run. But it is so painfully close. And remember the abandoned quiche skill I talked about literally just now? If you just so happen to have the luck to get a fast time up to Sans... Actually guys, I have to confess something. Throughout this video, I've been lying to you. Because sub 1 hour in a Genocide speedrun actually happened, done by the player Ivy. Using the quiche skill in the leaked beta build, you can skip Sans, saving 8 minutes, and finish the game in under an hour. What would be the best time in this category now? Well, if we take the current world record and subtract the 8 minutes you would otherwise spend on Sans, not only is a 59 possible, but also 54 is possible. Of course, this isn't a valid world record in the Genocide run, but it is a version that Toby released at one point, and it didn't require any external modifications. It only exists as a category extension, so this isn't really a real 59 in the context of actual world records. Otherwise, you can just say that an early real knife counts as a sub-hour run. That's not the game. But it's still cool that this kind of thing is possible, and someone has actually done it. Maybe one day, we will find an actual strategy in the base game to skip sands, but for now, this is the best we've got. So there you have it. That is why sub-hour Undertale Genocide will probably never happen, at least outside of beta versions and hacked saves. When everything is put together, it seems as though we face a major lottery roll. However, this doesn't mean that it's the same as other feats I've covered on this channel. This is still going to be really tough and tedious, and speedrunners would basically have to grind all day, every day, and you know they're not going to do that. They have lives to live, bills to pay, themselves to take care of, families to care for, the whole 9 yards. Sub-hour Genocide may forever remain a TAS-only feat. While it is possible in theory, it is really, and I do mean really, unlikely. Not impossible, but unlikely. The number one rule of speedrunning is to never say never, but a low 102 or high 101 is probably the furthest we can go with our current understanding of the game's mechanics and humanly possible strategies. Only time will tell though. What do you think? Do you think a 59 is possible? Special thanks again to TetraSpit for helping me out with this video. Go subscribe to their channel. I'll put a link in the end screen and in the pinned comment. This will likely be the final video I make on theoretical limits for a while, as there's nothing else I am knowledgeable enough in to make a decent attempt at covering it. But thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video, whatever that may be. See ya.